The kitchen clock read 11:47 p.m. when I finally found the courage to destroy my marriage. Graham sat at our granite breakfast bar, methodically reviewing shipping manifests, like he did every night, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. The same boring routine that had driven me into Tyler's arms 6 months ago. "Graham, we need to talk." My voice cracked despite hours of rehearsal. He didn't look up from his paperwork. "About what, Vesper?" I twisted my wedding ring, the diamond catching the under-cabinet lighting. "I made a mistake, last month during the Portland conference." The words tumbled out in a rush. "I had an affair." Graham's pen stopped moving. Slowly, he removed his glasses and set them down with deliberate precision. When he finally looked at me, his expression was completely neutral. Not shocked, not hurt, just calculating. "You're not the one who told me." The blood drained from my face. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Graham said, his voice eerily calm, "you're not the person who informed me about your affair with Tyler Moreau." My legs went weak. How did he know Tyler's name? I'd been so careful, so methodical about covering my tracks. "Graham, You what, Vesper? You thought you were being clever?" He stood up, his 6-foot frame suddenly intimidating in our cozy kitchen. "Did you really believe I wouldn't find out? Me? A senior customs broker whose entire career is built on tracking contraband and fraudulent shipping manifests." I gripped the counter for support. "How long have you known?" 3 weeks. He walked to the kitchen window, staring out at our perfectly manicured backyard. 3 weeks I've watched you come home, kiss my cheek, help Mila with homework, and pretend to be my loving wife. "Graham, please, let me explain." "Explain what? How you manipulated airline employee benefits to steal free flights? How you used fraudulent companion passes? Or maybe you want to explain the $4,800 in stolen services." My mouth went dry. He knew about the flights. He knew about everything. "The affair meant nothing," I whispered, falling back on my prepared script. "It was just, you've been so distant lately, so focused on work. I felt alone, and Tyler was just what? Convenient, available, stupid enough to brag to his coworkers about his free travel hookup." Graham's laugh was bitter. "Do you know what's fascinating about airline employees, Vesper? They love to gossip, especially when someone's abusing company benefits." I sank into a bar stool, my carefully constructed confession crumbling around me. "Who told you?" "Tyler's supervisor called me 3 weeks ago. Internal audit flagged unusual companion pass usage tied to our joint credit card. They found altered passenger manifests, unauthorized itinerary access, GPS correlation between your business trips and Tyler's layover schedule." Graham turned back to face me, his eyes cold. "They have security footage from 4 different airports, Vesper. 4. The room spun. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I was supposed to confess, show remorse, and we'd work through it together. Graham was supposed to be hurt, maybe angry, but ultimately forgiving. He wasn't supposed to have a federal case built against me. "The Portland conference," I stammered. "That was real. I really was there for work." "Room 1247 at the Marriott downtown. Tyler checked in 2 hours after you did. Hotel Wi-Fi logs show both your devices connecting to the same network. Your credit card paid for room service for 2. Graham's voice was mechanical, like he was reading from a report. Should I continue? Upstairs, I heard Mila's bedroom door creak. Our 10-year-old daughter had always been a light sleeper. "Keep your voice down," I hissed. "Mila doesn't need to hear this." "Mila doesn't need to hear what? The truth about her mother?" But Graham did lower his voice. "Don't worry. I've been very careful about what our daughter sees and hears, unlike some people." I felt tears starting, the kind that used to make Graham soften and take me in his arms. "Graham, I'm sorry. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through—" "Fix this?" Graham's eyebrows rose. "Vesper, you committed fraud, federal fraud. The TSA is involved now because Tyler accessed your itinerary multiple times without authorization. That's a security protocol violation. My hand started shaking. I didn't know. You didn't know what? That stealing airline benefits was illegal. That manipulating passenger manifests was fraud? Or you didn't know that your boyfriend was stupid enough to show your photos to half his co-workers? The word boyfriend hit like a slap. He's not my boyfriend. It was just sex, Graham. It didn't mean anything. Just sex that cost us $4,800 in stolen benefits. Just sex that's going to cost you your job when this becomes public. Just sex that's going to cost us our marriage. I looked around our kitchen, the space where we'd shared morning coffee for 12 years, where Mila had taken her first steps, where we'd planned our future together. It doesn't have to cost us our marriage. I chose to confess. That has to count for something. Graham picked up his glasses and put them back on, returning his attention to his paperwork. You didn't confess, Vesper. You got caught. There's a difference. I came to you tonight. You came to me tonight because you're scared. Tyler probably told you about the audit, didn't he? Or maybe you found something in my office that tipped you off. Graham's smile was sharp. Either way, this isn't a confession. It's damage control. He was right, and we both knew it. I'd found the airport security footage in his study 2 days ago. Grainy images of Tyler and me boarding a flight to Denver. I'd panicked, called Tyler, and he'd admitted his supervisor had been asking questions. What happens now? I asked quietly. Graham closed his folder and stood up. Now you get to experience what it's like when someone actually follows through on their threats. I've spent 3 weeks building a case, Vesper. Every receipt, every flight, every fraudulent manifest entry. It's all documented. You're going to divorce me. I'm going to divorce you. I'm going to pursue full custody of Mila. And I'm going to make sure every penny of stolen benefits gets repaid with interest. I felt sick. Graham, please. Please what? Please pretend this never happened? Please forgive you and move on? Please protect you from the consequences of your choices? He shook his head. I'm a customs enforcement officer, Vesper. I don't look the other way when people commit fraud. Not even when it's my wife. He walked toward the stairs, then paused. Oh, and Vesper, you might want to call in sick tomorrow. I have a feeling it's going to be a very interesting day at your office. As his footsteps faded up the stairs, I sat alone in our kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of my shattered marriage and the growing realization that my husband, my boring, predictable, methodical husband, had just declared war. And I was already losing. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Graham's cold, calculating expression and heard his voice. You're not the one who told me. By 6 a.m., I was dressed and heading to the office, desperate to salvage whatever I could before Graham's promised interesting day began. My phone buzzed as I pulled into the parking lot. Tyler. Vess, we need to talk. My supervisor called a meeting for this morning. They're asking about companion pass usage. I know, I whispered, even though I was alone in my car. Graham knows everything. What do you mean everything? Tyler, he has security footage from multiple airports. He knows about the manifest changes, the fraudulent bookings, all of it. Silence on the other end. Then, that's impossible. I was careful. I only adjusted the code slightly, and I always... You bragged to your co-workers, I hissed. Graham said you showed them photos of me. I might have mentioned, look, it doesn't matter. We can fix this. I'll tell my supervisor the changes were system errors. Happens all the time. I wanted to scream. Even now, facing potential federal charges, Tyler still thought he could charm his way out of trouble. It was part of what had attracted me to him initially. His confidence, his certainty that rules didn't apply to him. Now it terrified me. Tyler, listen to me very carefully. Graham is a senior customs broker. His entire network is law enforcement and trade compliance. If he says he has evidence, he has evidence. So what do you want me to do? confess, throw away my career because your husband is suspicious. My husband isn't suspicious, Tyler. He's informed. There's a difference. I hung up and sat in my car, trying to formulate a plan. I was a freight insurance claims adjuster. I made my living investigating fraud and false claims. Surely I could find a way to contain the situation. Inside the office, everything seemed normal. My assistant, Jennifer, brought me coffee and my morning claims reports. My colleague Mike waved from his cubicle. The familiar hum of phones and keyboards was comforting. Morning, Vesper. My supervisor, Patricia, appeared at my desk. How was the Portland conference last month? I never got your full report. My blood went cold. Portland was productive. I'm still compiling the final documentation. No rush. Although I did get an interesting call yesterday from one of our airline vendor contacts. Something about reviewing travel expense protocols. Patricia's expression was neutral, but I caught the subtle emphasis on protocols. I'm not sure what you mean. Probably nothing. You know how thorough compliance departments can be. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Just make sure all your travel documentation is current and accurate. After Patricia left, I locked my computer screen and headed to the bathroom, my hand shaking. I called Tyler again. They're already asking questions at my office, I whispered into the phone. Same here. My supervisor wants to see me in an hour. Vesper, I'm scared. For the first time since I'd known him, Tyler sounded vulnerable. The cocky gate agent who'd promised me VIP treatment and insider perks was finally realizing the magnitude of what we'd done. Just stick to the story. System errors. You were helping a friend with legitimate travel needs. Nothing fraudulent. What if they have the security footage your husband mentioned? Then we're screwed. I spent the morning trying to work, but every phone call made me jump. Every time someone walked past my desk, I wondered if they'd heard rumors. The insurance industry was small and gossip traveled fast. At lunch, I drove to a coffee shop across town and called my mother. Therese Moreau speaking. Mum, it's me. Vesper, how lovely to hear from you. How are Graham and Myla? I almost started crying at the normalcy in her voice. Mum, I need to tell you something. Graham and I are having problems. Oh, honey, what kind of problems? I'd rehearsed this conversation in my head, crafting a version that painted me as the victim of Graham's paranoia and controlling behavior. He's become obsessed with tracking my every move. He goes through our credit card statements, questions every business trip, even monitors my phone usage. That doesn't sound like Graham. He's always been so respectful of your independence. People change, Mum. The stress of his job, the long hours. He's become suspicious and controlling. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own home. Have you considered counseling? I've suggested it, but Graham refuses. He says there's nothing to discuss. I paused, adding just enough tremor to my voice. I'm scared this marriage might be over. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do? Just, if Graham calls you, or if you hear anything from his family, please remember that there are always two sides to every story. After hanging up, I felt marginally better. At least I was getting ahead of the narrative with my own family. Whatever Graham planned to reveal, I needed people in my corner. The afternoon dragged. Every email notification made my heart race. Every phone call could be the one that destroyed my career. By 4 p.m., I couldn't concentrate on anything. My computer chimed with a new email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Regarding recent travel activities." I opened it with trembling fingers. The message was brief. He knows. Attached was a single photograph. Tyler and me boarding a United flight to Denver 3 months ago. The timestamp showed the date and time clearly. We were laughing about something. Tyler's hand on my lower back, both of us looking relaxed and intimate. I deleted the email immediately, my heart pounding. Who had sent it? Graham? One of his contacts? Someone from Tyler's airline? My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. Meeting didn't go well. Supervisor has documentation going back 6 months. Says there's an ongoing investigation. I stared at the message, feeling the walls closing in. Graham hadn't been bluffing. He really did have everything documented. Every fraudulent flight, every stolen benefit, every moment Tyler and I thought we were being clever. I tried calling Tyler back, but it went straight to voicemail. Either his phone was off, or he was avoiding me. Probably the latter. At 5:30, I finally gave up pretending to work and headed home. The drive felt surreal, the same route I'd taken thousands of times, but now everything looked different. Would I still be living in this house next month? Would I still have my job? Would I still have my daughter? Graham's car was already in the driveway when I arrived. Through the kitchen window, I could see him helping Mila with homework at the breakfast bar, the picture of domestic normalcy. I sat in my car for a few minutes, gathering courage. When I finally walked inside, Mila ran to hug me. "Mommy, Daddy's helping me with my science project about weather patterns." "That's wonderful, sweetheart." I kissed the top of her head, breathing in her familiar scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood innocence. Graham looked up from the homework. "How was work today, Vesper? Anything interesting happen?" His tone was casual, but I caught the subtle emphasis on interesting. He was testing me, waiting to see if I'd lie again. "Just the usual claims processing, nothing special." I busied myself with starting dinner, avoiding his gaze. That's strange. I thought you might have had some unusual conversations today." Mila looked up from her homework. "What kind of conversations?" "Nothing important, baby," I said quickly. "Just boring work stuff." But Graham wasn't done. "I find it fascinating how information travels in professional networks. You'd be surprised how quickly news spreads when someone's behavior affects multiple industries." I dropped the wooden spoon I'd been using to stir pasta sauce. "Graham, can we discuss this later?" "Discuss what? I'm just making conversation about professional networking." His smile was sharp. "It's amazing how many people I know in transportation and logistics, customs, airlines, shipping companies. We all work together to prevent fraud and ensure compliance." The message was clear. His network was vast, his reach extensive, and I was trapped in the center of it. After dinner, while Mila watched TV in the living room, I cornered Graham in his study. "What did you do today?" I demanded. "I did my job. I processed customs documentation, reviewed shipping manifests, and coordinated with various enforcement agencies." He looked up from his computer. "Why do you ask?" "Someone sent me a photograph today of Tyler and me at the airport." "How interesting. Did you recognize the sender?" "Graham, please. Can't we work this out privately? Whatever you're planning, whatever case you're building, we can handle this between us. We don't need to involve other people." Graham saved his work and turned to face me fully. "Vesper, you involved other people the moment you decided to commit fraud. Tyler's supervisor, airline security, the TSA, customs enforcement. This stopped being private the second you broke federal law." "I didn't know it was federal." "You didn't know that manipulating airline systems was illegal. You didn't know that stealing employee benefits constituted fraud." Graham's voice remained calm, but his eyes were ice cold. "You're a fraud investigator, Vesper. You investigate insurance fraud for a living. Don't insult my intelligence by claiming ignorance." I sank into the chair across from his desk. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to experience what it feels like when someone actually follows through on accountability instead of just threatening it." "And our daughter? What about Mila? You're going to destroy her family over this?" "I'm not destroying our family, Vesper. You already did that. I'm just making sure the documentation is thorough and the consequences are appropriate." Graham turned back to his computer, effectively dismissing me. As I left his study, I noticed a thick manila folder on his desk labeled Linton v. Linton, Supporting Documentation. The folder was at least 2 inches thick. Whatever Graham had planned, it was going to be comprehensive. I woke up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Graham slept peacefully beside me, his breathing steady and even. How could he be so calm when our entire world was falling apart? Unable to go back to sleep, I crept downstairs to the kitchen and opened my laptop. I needed to understand exactly what Tyler and I had done, what evidence existed, and how bad this could get. I logged into our joint credit card account and began scrolling through months of statements. What I found made my stomach drop. Graham had already been through every transaction. Certain charges were highlighted in yellow. Others had handwritten notes in the margins. Portland Marriott, room 1247, $287.50 had a note. TM room 1249, same dates. Denver Westin, dinner for two, 156 on 78, was marked. No conference attendees listed for this date. Seattle Airport parking, 4 days, 96.0 had a sticky note. TM layover schedule matches exactly. Page after page of evidence, meticulously documented. Graham had cross-referenced every purchase with Tyler's flight schedule, hotel records, and my supposed conference itineraries. The pattern was undeniable. I found a separate folder labeled Wi-Fi login correlation with printouts from 4 different hotels. Each showed 2 devices connecting to the network within minutes of each other. My laptop and an iPhone registered to Tyler Moreau. My hands shook as I turned the pages. Graham hadn't just discovered our affair. He'd built a forensic timeline that would hold up in any court. Every lie I'd told was documented. Every false expense report was highlighted. Every fraudulent flight was mapped. The most damning folder was labeled Passenger Manifest Alterations. Inside were official airline documents showing Tyler's access logs, dozens of entries where he'd viewed my travel itinerary, modified booking codes, and applied companion pass benefits. One document made me physically sick. It was a summary from Tyler's supervisor detailing the internal audit findings. $4,800 in fraudulent companion pass usage, unauthorized passenger manifest modifications, security protocol violations for accessing customer data without legitimate business purpose. At the bottom, someone had handwritten, recommend termination and criminal referral. I was still staring at the documents when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Graham appeared in the kitchen doorway, wearing his robe and an unsurprised expression. Couldn't sleep, he asked mildly. You've been planning this for weeks. I've been documenting evidence for weeks. There's a difference. He poured himself a glass of water and sat across from me at the breakfast bar. Find anything interesting? I gestured at the spread of papers. This is comprehensive. I'm thorough. It's what makes me good at my job. Graham picked up one of the highlighted credit card statements. Do you remember this charge? The Seattle Hotel Restaurant? I looked at the entry. $89.45. Seafood dinner for 2. You told me you ate alone in your room that night because you had a headache, but the restaurant receipt shows 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, and a shared dessert. Graham's voice was conversational, like we were discussing the weather. Tyler's phone connected to the hotel Wi-Fi at 7:23 p.m. Your dinner was charged at 8:15 p.m. Graham, I'm not finished. The really interesting part is that Tyler's flight was delayed that day. Mechanical issues. So instead of a 4-hour layover, he had 11 hours. 11 hours that perfectly coincided with your migraine. I closed my eyes. How do you know about his flight delay? Because I have friends in airline operations. Because when you work in customs and trade enforcement, you develop relationships with people in transportation security. Because Tyler Moreau was stupid enough to brag about his system to co-workers who got curious about policy violations. Graham stood up and gathered the papers into neat stacks. Do you want to know the timeline of how this unraveled? I didn't, but I nodded anyway. 3 weeks ago, Tyler's supervisor called me directly. Not Tyler, not you, me. Because when they ran the audit on fraudulent companion pass usage, my name appeared as the credit card holder for multiple suspicious bookings. Graham's tone remained matter-of-fact. The supervisor was actually trying to help. He thought someone might be using our credit card fraudulently. Oh, God. I could have told him it was fraud and let them pursue charges immediately, but I was curious. I wanted to understand the full scope of what my wife had been doing. Graham's smile was cold. So I asked him to send me everything they had while they continued their investigation. He pulled out another folder. Airline security footage from Portland, Denver, Seattle, and Phoenix. Hotel Wi-Fi correlation reports. Credit card geolocation data. And my personal favorite, 5 signed statements from Tyler's co-workers confirming that he bragged about providing free travel perks to his girlfriend. I felt like I was going to vomit. Tyler called me his girlfriend? According to the statements, he showed photos of you at various destinations and described your relationship in considerable detail. Graham's expression didn't change. Apparently, he was quite proud of how clever he was being with the manifest modifications. My phone buzzed with a text message. Tyler, they fired me. Security escorted me out. Says there might be criminal charges. I showed Graham the message. He read it without emotion. That's unfortunate for Tyler, but not unexpected. Graham poured himself coffee from the machine I'd apparently forgotten to turn off. The TSA doesn't take security protocol violations lightly. Accessing passenger data without authorization is a federal offense. What about me? Am I going to be charged too? That depends on several factors: your level of knowledge about the fraud, your cooperation with investigators, whether the airline decides to pursue charges against both of you or just Tyler. Graham sipped his coffee. I imagine they'll want to interview you soon. As if summoned by his words, my phone rang. Unknown number. Answer it, Graham said. Speakerphone. With shaking fingers, I accepted the call. Hello? Ms. Linton, this is Detective Sarah Chen with Airline Security. We need to schedule an interview regarding fraudulent use of employee travel benefits. Are you available today? I looked at Graham, who nodded encouragingly. Yes, I can be available. Excellent. Can you come to our office at 2 p.m.? Bring any documentation related to your recent travel with Tyler Moreau. After I hung up, Graham refilled his coffee mug. You'll want to be completely honest with them, Vesper. Any attempt to minimize or deflect will only make things worse. Are you coming with me? No. This is your interview, about your choices. But I will give you some advice. Tell them everything. The timeline, the flights, how Tyler arranged the bookings. Cooperation might be the only thing that keeps you out of federal court. I stared at my husband, this man I'd lived with for 12 years, who I'd thought was predictable and boring. How are you so calm about this? Because I've spent 3 weeks preparing for this conversation. I've had time to process the anger, the betrayal, the disappointment. Graham set down his mug and looked directly at me. You're just now realizing the consequences of your actions. I've been living with them for weeks. Graham, I know I messed up, but... You didn't mess up, Vesper. You made a series of calculated decisions over 6 months. You chose to have an affair. You chose to participate in fraud. You chose to lie to me, to Mila, to your employer, to airline security. His voice never rose, but each word hit like a hammer. The only thing you didn't choose was getting caught. Upstairs, I heard Mila's alarm clock go off. Our daughter would be down soon, expecting breakfast and normalcy, and parents who weren't discussing federal fraud charges at the kitchen table. What do I tell her? I whispered. You tell her the truth, in age-appropriate terms, that Mommy made some bad choices, and there might be consequences. Graham stood up and began putting the documents back in their folders. But first, you go to that interview and you tell airline security everything they want to know. And then you call a lawyer, because in about 6 hours, you're going to need one. As Graham headed upstairs to shower, I sat alone in our kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of my own destruction. Every highlighted charge, every correlated timeline, every documented lie told the same story. I had been reckless, stupid, and arrogant. But the worst part wasn't the fraud charges or the potential criminal referral. The worst part was that Graham had been right about everything, and I was only just beginning to understand how thoroughly he'd outplayed me. The airline security office was located in a nondescript building near the airport, the kind of place you'd drive past without a second glance. Inside, Detective Chen was younger than I'd expected, with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she'd heard every excuse in the book. "Thank you for coming in voluntarily, Ms. Linton. This interview is being recorded for accuracy." She pressed a button on a small device between us. "Can you state your full name and relationship to Tyler Moreau for the record?" "Vesper Marie Linton. Tyler and I, we had a personal relationship." "Can you be more specific about the nature of that relationship?" I shifted uncomfortably in the plastic chair. "We were having an affair." "How long did this affair last?" "About 6 months." Detective Chen consulted her notes. "During this 6-month period, did Mr. Moreau provide you with any travel benefits or assistance with airline bookings?" This was it, the moment where I could either cooperate fully or try to minimize my involvement. Graham's advice echoed in my head. Tell them everything. "Yes, Tyler arranged for me to use companion passes on several flights. He said it was a standard employee benefit." "Did you know these companion passes were being applied fraudulently?" I hesitated. "I suspected the process wasn't entirely standard, but Tyler assured me it was legal." Detective Chen raised an eyebrow. "Ms. Linton, you work in insurance fraud investigation, correct? Didn't your professional experience suggest that manipulating airline booking systems might be problematic?" Heat flooded my face. I trusted Tyler's expertise about airline policies. "Let's review specific incidents." She opened a thick folder that looked remarkably similar to Graham's documentation. "February 15th, flight 1247 to Portland. Can you describe how this booking was arranged?" For the next 2 hours, Detective Chen walked me through every fraudulent flight, every manipulated manifest, every stolen benefit. She had security footage, credit card records, hotel Wi-Fi logs, and witness statements. The evidence was overwhelming. "Ms. Linton, we have statements from 5 airline employees confirming that Mr. Moreau bragged about providing free travel hookups to his girlfriend. He showed photos of you at various destinations and described the booking process in detail." Detective Chen's tone remained professional, but I caught the judgment underneath. "Did you know he was discussing your relationship and these arrangements with coworkers?" "No, Tyler never mentioned that." "According to these statements, Mr. Moreau referred to you as his travel girlfriend and claimed he could hook up anyone with free flights using his system access." She slid a document across the table. "This is a summary of his unauthorized data access. Over 6 months, he viewed your travel itinerary 43 times without legitimate business purpose." I stared at the numbers, feeling sick. 43 times. Tyler had been obsessively tracking my travel, accessing my personal information, using his position to monitor and manipulate my bookings. "The total value of fraudulently obtained benefits is $4,800, Detective Chen continued. "This includes companion passes, seat upgrades, and priority boarding privileges. Are you prepared to make restitution for these charges?" I don't have that kind of money readily available." "That's unfortunate. The airline will be pursuing recovery of all fraudulent charges, plus penalties and administrative fees." She made a note in her file. "Now, regarding your level of cooperation, are you willing to testify against Mr. Moreau if this case proceeds to criminal court?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "Testify against Tyler?" "Ms. Linton, Mr. Moreau used his position of trust to access secure airline systems for personal benefit." He manipulated passenger manifests, stole employee benefits, and violated federal security protocols. This is a serious criminal matter. Detective Chen leaned forward. Your cooperation could be the difference between being charged as a co-conspirator or being treated as a victim of his fraud. I need to think about it. Of course, but don't think too long. Mr. Moreau has already indicated he plans to claim you were aware of and actively participated in the fraudulent activities. My blood went cold. What do you mean? He's attempting to minimize his own culpability by suggesting you pressured him to provide these benefits. According to his statement, you specifically requested VIP treatment and insider perks for your business travel. I felt the walls closing in. Tyler was throwing me under the bus to save himself, just like he'd bragged to his co-workers to boost his ego. The man I'd risked my marriage for was now trying to destroy me to protect his own interests. I want to cooperate fully, I said quickly. Tyler manipulated me. He told me the companion passes were legitimate employee benefits. I had no idea he was altering manifests or violating security protocols. Detective Chen smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. Excellent. We'll need a detailed statement about your interactions with Mr. Moreau, including any conversations about the booking process, his claims about airline policies, and your understanding of the legitimacy of these arrangements. The statement took another hour to complete. By the time I left the security office, I felt drained and nauseated. I'd thrown Tyler completely under the bus, detailing every conversation where he'd bragged about his system and assured me everything was legal. But I'd also sealed my own fate. There was no way this wouldn't become public knowledge. My employer would find out. My colleagues would gossip. My professional reputation would be destroyed. I was sitting in my car in the parking lot, trying to gather courage to drive home, when my phone rang. Patricia, my supervisor. Vesper, I need you to come in immediately. We've received some concerning information about your recent travel activities. I'm actually dealing with a personal emergency right now. This isn't a request, Vesper. HR needs to speak with you today. If you're not in the office within an hour, we'll consider it job abandonment. The line went dead. I sat staring at my phone, realizing that Graham's prediction about my interesting day was only getting started. When I arrived at the office, Jennifer avoided eye contact and Mike pretended to be busy with paperwork. The whispers started as soon as I walked through the door. Patricia was waiting at my desk with someone from HR I didn't recognize. Vesper, this is David Martinez from Corporate HR. We need to discuss your recent travel expense reports. David was younger than me, with the kind of serious expression that suggested this wasn't going to be a friendly conversation. We've received notification from one of our airline vendor partners about irregularities in your travel bookings, he said without preamble. Specifically, allegations of benefit fraud and security protocol violations. I looked around the office, acutely aware that my colleagues were listening to every word. Can we discuss this privately? Of course. Patricia gestured toward the conference room. Inside the glass-walled room, David opened a laptop and pulled up what looked like an official report. According to airline security, you've been involved in a 6-month scheme to defraud employee travel benefits. The estimated loss is nearly $5,000. He turned the screen toward me. These allegations directly impact our company's relationship with airline vendors and call into question the accuracy of your expense reports. I was unaware that any fraud was taking place. Ms. Linton, you're a senior fraud investigator. Your job is literally to identify and prevent fraudulent claims. David's tone was sharp. Are you seriously claiming you couldn't recognize benefit fraud when you were participating in it? Through the conference room's glass walls, I could see my colleagues watching the meeting with obvious curiosity. Some were pretending to work, others were openly staring. What happens now? I asked quietly. Now we conduct a full audit of your travel expenses for the past year. We review every expense report, every conference claim, every mileage reimbursement. David closed his laptop. And we determine whether your conduct has compromised our business relationships with travel vendors. Am I suspended? You're on administrative leave pending the outcome of our investigation. Security will escort you out after you gather your personal belongings. The walk back to my desk felt endless. Every step was observed, every movement scrutinized. I packed my personal items into a cardboard box while my colleagues watched in silence. Jennifer finally approached as I was clearing out my desk drawers. Vesper, what's happening? Are you okay? I made some mistakes, I said quietly. Poor judgment about personal relationships. Is it true about the airline fraud? Mike had appeared beside my cubicle, his voice low but not low enough. I didn't answer. What could I say? That I'd been sleeping with a gate agent who'd stolen benefits for me, that my husband had built a federal case against me, that I was facing potential criminal charges. Security arrived, a bored-looking guard who'd escorted me out of buildings before when we'd terminated employees for fraud. The irony wasn't lost on me. As I walked through the office lobby, carrying my box of personal belongings, I caught a glimpse of myself in the glass doors. I looked exactly like the fraudsters I'd spent my career investigating, defeated, embarrassed, and guilty. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. Heard they suspended you. This is all getting out of hand. We need to talk. I deleted the message without responding. Tyler had already made it clear he was willing to sacrifice me to save himself. Whatever he wanted to discuss, it wouldn't be in my best interests. The drive home was a blur. I kept thinking about Detective Chen's words. Your cooperation could be the difference between being charged as a co-conspirator or being treated as a victim. But cooperation meant testifying against Tyler. It meant admitting publicly that I'd been naive enough to believe his lies about airline policies. It meant acknowledging that my affair had cost me my career, my marriage, and potentially my freedom. Graham's car was in the driveway when I arrived home. Through the kitchen window, I could see him on the phone, pacing back and forth with the focused intensity he brought to complex customs cases. He was probably coordinating with his network of law enforcement contacts, making sure every piece of evidence was properly documented and every legal avenue was explored. My boring, predictable husband had become the most dangerous person in my life, and I was just beginning to understand how thoroughly he intended to destroy me. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, staring at our front door and trying to find the courage to face Graham. The cardboard box of personal belongings in my passenger seat felt like evidence of my complete failure. Framed photos of Mila, a coffee mug that said "World's Best Mom," and a small cactus that had somehow survived 3 years on my desk. When I finally walked inside, Graham was ending his phone call. Yes, I understand the timeline. Thursday morning for the process service? That works perfectly. He noticed me standing in the doorway. I'll call you back. Process service? I set my box on the kitchen counter. Divorce papers. I filed this morning. Graham's tone was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing dinner plans. How did your interview go? You filed for divorce? Today? Did you think I was bluffing, Vesper? I told you there would be consequences. He gestured at my box. I see you've already been suspended. How did you... Patricia called me. Professional courtesy. She wanted to make sure I knew about the airline investigation before it became public knowledge. Graham poured himself coffee from a fresh pot. She also mentioned that your termination is likely, depending on the audit results. I sank into a kitchen chair, feeling overwhelmed. They're auditing all my travel expenses for the past year. That's standard procedure for fraud investigations. They need to determine the full scope of potentially compromised claims. Graham sat across from me, his expression neutral. What did you tell airline security? Everything. The whole timeline, all the flights Tyler arranged, every conversation about the companion passes. I looked up at him. They want me to testify against Tyler if it goes to criminal court. Smart choice. Cooperation is your only path to avoiding federal charges. Graham, please. Can't we work this out between us? The divorce, the custody. Do we really need to make this public? It's already public, Vesper. The moment you participated in benefit fraud with an airline employee, it became a matter of public record. Graham's voice remained calm, but I caught the steel underneath. Your name is now in federal investigative files. Your employer has been notified. The airline industry maintains security bulletins about personnel who've violated trust protocols. What does that mean? It means your career in any transportation-related field is over. Airlines, shipping companies, customs brokers, freight forwarders, they all share information about security risks. Graham's smile was sharp. Congratulations, Vesper. You've made yourself unemployable in the industry where all your experience and contacts exist. My phone rang. Tyler again. I declined the call. He's been trying to reach me all day. I imagine he's panicked. Termination, potential criminal charges, loss of security clearance. Tyler's entire career just evaporated. Graham seemed almost sympathetic. But that's what happens when you abuse positions of trust. You sound satisfied. I am satisfied. Justice is being served. People who commit fraud are facing appropriate consequences. Graham stood up and refilled his coffee mug. The system is working exactly as it should. Upstairs, I heard Mila's bedroom door open. Our daughter would be down soon, expecting after-school snacks and homework help, and parents who weren't discussing federal investigations. What do I tell her? You tell her that Mommy made some bad choices, and there are going to be changes in our family. Graham's expression softened slightly, but you don't burden her with details she's too young to understand. Mila appeared in the kitchen doorway, still wearing her school backpack. Mommy, you're home early. Are you sick? I forced a smile. Something like that, sweetheart. I'm taking some time off from work. Can we do something fun together? Maybe go to the mall or see a movie? I looked at Graham, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Sure, baby. Let's go to the mall. We can get dinner in the food court. As Mila ran upstairs to change clothes, Graham pulled me aside. The process server will be at your office Thursday morning. I thought you should know, since you won't be there to receive the papers. Where will they serve me? Here. At home. In front of Mila, if necessary. His expression was implacable. Unless you'd prefer to accept service voluntarily to avoid traumatizing our daughter. The threat was clear. Cooperate, or he'd make this as publicly humiliating as possible. I'll accept service voluntarily. Good. My attorney will contact you about scheduling a meeting to discuss custody arrangements and asset division. Graham, please. Please what? Please pretend this never happened. Please forgive you and move on. Graham's voice was quiet, but his words cut deep. You made your choices, Vesper. Now live with the consequences. The trip to the mall with Mila was surreal. We walked through stores, bought her a new sweater, shared nachos in the food court, all while I felt like I was watching someone else's life. Every normal interaction felt precious and fragile, like it might be one of the last times we could just be mother and daughter without the weight of scandal between us. Mummy, are you and Daddy getting divorced? The question came out of nowhere as we were driving home. Mila was staring out the passenger window, her voice small and worried. What makes you ask that, sweetheart? Sarah's parents got divorced last year. Her mom moved out and they had to sell their house. Mila turned to look at me. Is that going to happen to us? I pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine, buying time to formulate an answer. Daddy and I are having some problems right now. We're going to need some time to figure things out. But you're not moving out, right? We're not selling our house. The truth was, I had no idea where I'd be living next month. With no job, potential criminal charges, and Graham's methodical pursuit of divorce, I might not have any choice about moving out. I don't know yet, baby. But whatever happens, Daddy and I both love you very much. That will never change. Mila nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. She was old enough to sense that our family was fracturing, even if she didn't understand why. That evening, after Mila was in bed, I tried one more time to reason with Graham. The custody arrangement, can we at least discuss joint custody? 50-50 time? Graham looked up from his laptop, where he was reviewing what looked like legal documents. Joint custody requires trust and cooperation between parents. It requires stability and good judgment. His tone was clinical. You've demonstrated poor judgment, a willingness to lie and deceive, and involvement in criminal activity. Why would I agree to joint custody? Because I'm her mother, because she loves me and needs me in her life. She needs a stable home environment with a parent who makes responsible choices. She needs to understand that actions have consequences and that integrity matters. Graham closed his laptop. You can have supervised visitation once the criminal investigation is resolved. Supervised visitation? Graham, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Until you demonstrate that you can be trusted to make appropriate decisions, I'm not comfortable with unsupervised access to our daughter. I felt tears starting, the kind that used to make Graham soften and comfort me, but his expression remained impassive. You're punishing Mila to hurt me. I'm protecting Mila from the chaos you've created. There's a difference. Graham stood up and headed toward the stairs. You should probably start looking for a lawyer, Vesper, and an apartment. I'll be filing for exclusive use of the marital home as part of the custody petition. As his footsteps faded up the stairs, I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by 12 years of shared memories. Family photos on the mantel, Mila's artwork on the refrigerator, the couch where Graham and I used to watch movies together. All of it was about to disappear. My phone buzzed with another call from Tyler. This time, I answered. Vesper, thank God. We need to meet. Tonight. Tyler, I can't. Graham filed for divorce today and... Listen to me. I've been talking to a lawyer. There might be a way to fight this, to claim we were set up or entrapped somehow. Set up? Tyler, we committed fraud. Multiple times. There's security footage and documentation. Your husband is a customs broker, right? He has access to airline systems, connections in law enforcement. What if he orchestrated this whole thing to frame us? I almost laughed at the absurdity. Graham didn't force you to alter passenger manifests or steal companion passes. He didn't make me lie about business conferences or hide hotel receipts. But the timing is suspicious. Why did the audit happen now? Why did his contacts suddenly start investigating? Because you bragged to your co-workers about providing free travel hookups to your girlfriend. Because you were sloppy and arrogant and thought you were smarter than airline security. Silence on the other end of the line. Tyler, it's over. We got caught. The best thing we can do now is cooperate with investigators and try to minimize the damage. So you're just going to throw me under the bus? You already threw me under the bus. Detective Chen told me you're claiming I pressured you into providing the benefits. I was trying to negotiate. You were trying to save yourself at my expense, just like you bragged about me to your co-workers to boost your ego. I felt a surge of anger. You destroyed my marriage, my career, and my relationship with my daughter, and you did it because you couldn't keep your mouth shut about how clever you thought you were. I hung up and blocked his number. Whatever Tyler was planning, whatever desperate scheme he thought might save us, I wanted no part of it. The damage was done. My marriage was over, my job was gone, and my daughter would grow up knowing her mother was a fraud. Graham had won completely, and the worst part was, he'd done it all legally, methodically, and with perfect documentation, just like he'd warned me he would. Thursday morning arrived with the kind of grey, drizzling rain that matched my mood perfectly. I'd barely slept, spending most of the night staring at the ceiling and listening to Graham's steady breathing beside me. How could he sleep so peacefully while orchestrating the complete destruction of my life? At 9 a.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. I'd been expecting it, but my heart still raced as I opened the door to find a professional-looking woman in a business suit holding a manila envelope. Vesper Mary Linton? Yes. You're being served with divorce papers and a custody petition. Please sign here acknowledging receipt. I signed the form with shaking hands, acutely aware that Graham was watching from the kitchen doorway. The process server handed me the thick envelope and left without another word. Inside were documents that took my breath away. Graham hadn't just filed for divorce. He'd filed for exclusive custody, exclusive use of the marital home, and termination of spousal support based on adultery and criminal conduct. But the most devastating document was titled Supporting Evidence for Custody Determination. It was a comprehensive dossier of my affair, complete with security footage stills, credit card records, hotel receipts, and witness statements. Every lie I'd told, every fraudulent flight, every moment I'd thought I was being clever. All of it documented with forensic precision. The final page was a timeline showing how my criminal conduct had escalated over 6 months, culminating in federal investigation and termination from employment. Graham's legal team had painted me as an unstable, dishonest person who posed a risk to our daughter's well-being. Thorough, isn't it? Graham appeared beside me, coffee mug in hand. This is comprehensive. I told you I was good at building cases. 12 years of marriage gave me plenty of insight into your decision-making patterns. Graham sat across from me at the breakfast table. My attorney says it's one of the strongest custody cases he's ever seen. I flipped through pages of evidence, feeling sick. You've been planning this for weeks. I've been preparing for every possible scenario. It's what I do for a living. Anticipate problems, gather evidence, build airtight cases. Graham's tone was conversational. Did you really think I'd just roll over and let you destroy our family without consequences? My phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Linton, this is Rebecca Torres from the law firm of Martinez, Torres and Associates. I understand you're in need of legal representation. I looked at Graham, who nodded encouragingly. Yes, I think I need a lawyer. Can you come in today? Given the urgency of your situation, I'd like to review your case as soon as possible. After hanging up, I stared at the divorce papers spread across our kitchen table. How am I supposed to pay for a lawyer? I don't have a job anymore. That's not my problem, Vesper. You should have considered the financial implications before committing fraud. Graham stood up and rinsed his coffee mug in the sink. Although I hear some attorneys work on payment plans for desperate clients. The law office was located in a strip mall between a tax preparation service and a nail salon. Not exactly the prestigious firm I'd imagined I'd need. Rebecca Torres was younger than me, with the kind of aggressive energy that suggested she was hungry for clients. I've reviewed the preliminary documents your husband's attorney sent over, she said, gesturing to a thick folder on her desk. I have to be honest, Ms. Linton, this is going to be challenging. How challenging? Your husband has documentation of adultery, fraud, criminal investigation, and job termination. He's seeking full custody based on claims that you're an unfit parent. Rebecca opened the folder and pulled out familiar-looking photographs. These security images of you and Mr. Moreau are compromising. I stared at a photo of Tyler and me kissing in an airport terminal, his hand on my waist, both of us looking relaxed and intimate. Where did he get these? Airline security cameras. Your husband's connections in law enforcement gave him access to footage from multiple airports. Rebecca flipped to another page. He also has hotel records, credit card statements, and witness testimony from airline employees. Can we challenge any of it? Challenge what? The photographs are authentic. The financial records are accurate. The witness statements are consistent. Rebecca leaned back in her chair. Ms. Linton, your husband didn't just catch you having an affair. He documented a pattern of criminal behavior over 6 months. I felt tears starting. What about custody? Surely I have rights as Mila's mother. Parental rights can be limited when there's evidence of poor judgment, criminal activity, or behavior that affects the child's well-being. Rebecca pulled out another document. Your husband is claiming that your affair and fraud demonstrate a pattern of deception that makes you unsuitable for unsupervised custody. That's ridiculous. I would never do anything to hurt Mila. But you did hurt her. You destroyed her family through your choices. You exposed her to the chaos of criminal investigation and public scandal. Rebecca's tone was blunt. From a family court perspective, your husband represents stability while you represent risk. The meeting lasted 2 hours and cost me $500 I couldn't afford. Rebecca's assessment was brutal but honest. Graham held all the cards, and my only hope was to negotiate the least damaging settlement possible. Focus on getting some form of custody, even if it's supervised, she advised. Don't fight the financial aspects. You have no leverage there. And whatever you do, don't give your husband any additional ammunition. When I got home, Mila was at the kitchen table doing homework while Graham reviewed documents on his laptop. "How was school today, sweetheart?" I asked, trying to sound normal. "Fine. Sarah asked if you were going to jail like her uncle did for stealing money from his work." Graham looked up sharply. "What did you tell her?" "I said Mommy didn't steal anything. She just made some mistakes." Mila's voice was small and uncertain. "She's not going to jail, right?" I looked at Graham, who gave an almost imperceptible shake of his head. "No, baby, Mommy's not going to jail. But there might be some changes in our family soon." "What kind of changes?" Graham closed his laptop and sat beside Mila. "Your mom and I are getting divorced, sweetheart. It means we won't be married anymore, but we'll both still be your parents." Mila's eyes filled with tears. "Are you getting divorced because of the mistakes Mommy made?" The question hung in the air like a knife. Graham could have deflected, could have given some generic answer about adults sometimes growing apart. Instead, he chose honesty. "Yes, Mila. Mommy made some very serious mistakes that hurt our family. Sometimes when people break trust, it can't be fixed. But you still love each other, right? Like Sarah's parents did before they got divorced." I started to answer, but Graham spoke first. "I loved the person I thought your mother was, but it turns out she was lying to me about important things for a very long time." His voice was gentle but firm. "Love requires honesty and trust. When those things are gone, love can't survive." Mila looked at me with confusion and disappointment. "Why did you lie to Daddy?" I had no answer that a 10-year-old could understand. How could I explain that I'd felt neglected and bored? That Tyler had made me feel special and exciting? That I'd convinced myself Graham wouldn't find out? Sometimes adults make very bad choices, sweetheart. I made bad choices, and now our family is paying the price. That evening, after Mila was in bed, Graham and I had our final conversation as husband and wife. "The custody hearing is scheduled for next month," he said, not looking up from his laptop. "My attorney recommends you accept the supervised visitation offer. Fighting for more will only drag this out and cost you money you don't have." "Supervised visitation? Graham, I'm her mother." "You're a mother who committed fraud, lied for 6 months, and is under federal investigation. The court isn't going to ignore that." Graham finally looked at me. "Take the deal, Vesper. It's the best you're going to get." "And the house?" "I'm keeping it. Mila needs stability, and I can actually afford the mortgage payments." Graham's expression was implacable. "You'll need to find somewhere else to live." "What about spousal support?" "Adultery and criminal conduct void any claim to spousal support under state law. My attorney made sure to document both thoroughly." I stared at my husband, this man who'd systematically destroyed my life using nothing but legal procedures and documented evidence. "You really hate me, don't you?" Graham considered the question seriously. "No, Vesper, I don't hate you. Hate requires passion, and I don't feel passion for you anymore." He closed his laptop and stood up. "I feel disappointed. Disappointed that the woman I married turned out to be someone I never really knew." 3 weeks later, I sat in family court watching Graham's attorney present his case. Every piece of evidence was entered methodically: security footage, financial records, witness statements, criminal investigation summaries. The judge reviewed each document with growing disapproval. My attorney tried to argue for joint custody, but the judge cut her off. Ms. Linton, you engaged in a 6-month pattern of adultery and fraud. You lied to your husband, your employer, and federal investigators. You participated in criminal activity that resulted in job termination and ongoing investigation. The judge's voice was stern. This court's primary concern is the best interests of the child, not your parental rights. The final decree was devastating. Graham received full custody with me getting supervised visitation every other weekend. He kept the house, the savings accounts, and Mila's college fund. I was responsible for my own legal fees and half the marital debt. But the worst part came at the end, when the judge addressed me directly. Ms. Linton, this court hopes you'll use this experience to reflect on the consequences of dishonesty and poor judgment. Your daughter deserves a mother who demonstrates integrity and makes responsible choices. As we left the courthouse, Graham's attorney handed me one final document. What's this? Notice that your name has been added to airline industry security bulletins. It's standard procedure for individuals involved in transportation fraud. The attorney's tone was matter-of-fact. You'll find it difficult to obtain employment in any field involving travel, shipping, or logistics. I looked at Graham, who was already walking toward his car with his legal team. Graham, wait. He turned back, his expression neutral. Was it worth it? Destroying me so completely? Graham considered the question for a long moment. I didn't destroy you, Vesper. I documented your choices and ensured appropriate consequences. He paused. But to answer your question, yes, it was worth it. Justice was served, my daughter is protected, and people who commit fraud faced accountability. And Tyler? Tyler pled guilty yesterday. 18 months probation, $5,000 in restitution, permanent loss of security clearance. Graham's smile was sharp. He'll be working retail for the foreseeable future. As Graham drove away, I stood on the courthouse steps, holding my copy of the divorce decree. Everything I'd built over 12 years, my marriage, my career, my home, my relationship with my daughter, was gone. I'd gambled everything on a 6-month affair with a man who'd bragged about me to his co-workers and then tried to sacrifice me to save himself. And I'd lost to a husband I'd underestimated, who'd used nothing but patience, documentation, and legal procedures to destroy me completely. The rain started again as I walked to my car, parked in the courthouse lot next to a sign that read, "Justice served here." For the first time in months, I had to admit Graham was right about something. Justice had definitely been served.